She used to question everything, but never him. Said she was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. So she shrunk. She silenced her instincts. She swallowed her pain with a smile. But something shifted the day she saw herself through a stranger's eyes. And suddenly, everything he said didn't sound like love anymore. This is the story of how she woke up inside the lie and found the courage to choose truth over toxic love. At first, it was little things. She'd make a joke, and he'd say, "Why are you always trying to get attention?" She'd share a fear, and he'd sigh. "You overthink everything." She started keeping her thoughts to herself, walking on eggshells without even realizing it. In public, they looked perfect. She smiled. He held her hand. But behind closed doors, the silence was sharp, and her heart felt heavy. Some nights she'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering, is this what love is supposed to feel like? Still, she told herself, maybe it's just a rough patch. Maybe she really is too sensitive. Maybe she needs to be better. But the quiet doubt in her chest grew louder with every apology she made. For things that weren't her fault, she started forgetting who she was, not because she changed, but because he slowly erased her.
You're imagining things.
I never said that. You always make things worse. Each phrase chipped away at her truth, till confusion became her reality. She'd try to stand up for herself, only to be met with cold eyes and twisted words that made her question everything. One day she found herself apologizing for crying, saying sorry for being hurt. Another day she skipped lunch to cook his favorite meal, just to avoid another silent treatment. Her smile turned mechanical. Her light dimmed. Her friends noticed, but she pulled away, afraid they wouldn't understand. He told her she was lucky to have him. She started to believe it. And with every gaslight, every manipulation disguised as love, she sank deeper into a version of herself she no longer recognized. She wasn't looking for answers that day. She just needed a moment away from the noise inside her head. Scrolling aimlessly, she stumbled on a video. A woman soft-spoken, but strong, was sharing her story. Same confusion, same hurt, same question echoing. Is it really abuse if there are no bruises? Her heart stopped. The words didn't just resonate. They pierced. Because for the first time, someone said out loud what she had silently carried for years. Gaslighting, love bombing, emotional neglect. She had no language for it until now. And in that moment, the shame began to loosen its grip. The silence she was drowning in cracked, just enough to let the light in. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't too sensitive. She was being conditioned to question her own reality. That single voice didn't fix everything, but it gave her permission to listen to her own again. That was the beginning. For so long, she believed love meant enduring pain, that real love was supposed to hurt a little. But now, she saw the truth. Love doesn't make you shrink, doesn't demand silence in exchange for peace. Every time she cried and he rolled his eyes. Every moment she spoke her truth and was met with twisted words. That was never love. That was control, cloaked in charm. She wasn't too emotional. She was reacting to being emotionally starved. She wasn't dramatic. She was finally recognizing a cycle meant to keep her confused. And here's what she finally understood. Your feelings don't need permission to exist. You don't need their validation to know what you felt was real. If it hurt, it hurt. If it felt wrong, it probably was. She began journaling again, reclaiming her inner voice, one word at a time. She read books on trauma, listened to podcasts that affirmed her pain wasn't imagined, and little by little, she rebuilt a truth no one could distort again. She was never crazy. She was deeply intuitive. And she was right to feel everything she did. Healing didn't start with forgiveness. It started with awareness. Awareness of how many times she had excused emotional abuse as just stress. Awareness of how often she had explained away cruelty with, he had a rough childhood. So the first tool she reached for, naming the behavior, gaslighting, love bombing, stonewalling, she learned the terms. She understood the patterns. And that gave her language for her pain. The second tool, boundaries, not walls, but protective lines that said, I matter. No more answering calls at midnight. No more justifying herself to someone determined not to understand. And then came community. She joined a support group online, anonymous but deeply validating. There were women who sounded like her, who cried the same kind of tears, and who reminded her she wasn't alone. She started therapy not to fix herself, but to reclaim herself. With each session, she peeled back the layers of shame that weren't hers to carry. And journaling, it became her daily ritual. Each page a quiet declaration: I am healing. I am enough. I am free. Healing didn't happen all at once, but each small step made the next one possible. Because rebuilding isn't about erasing the past, it's about rising with new wisdom stronger than before. There was a time she couldn't go a day without crying. Now, she could go a full hour without thinking of him, and that was progress. The silence that once haunted her, it had become peace. No more walking on eggshells. No more decoding text messages. No more shrinking to be loved. She started laughing again loudly, freely, without permission. One evening, she looked in the mirror and saw something unexpected. Softness in her eyes, strength behind her smile. She wasn't the same woman who had begged for love in the form of crumbs. She was becoming the woman who fed herself with wholeness. She had scars, yes, but they weren't signs of weakness. They were proof of survival, of rising, of reclaiming. Forgiveness didn't come with a grand declaration. It came with acceptance of what was, of what will never be, of what she now chooses. And most beautifully, she no longer needed an apology to heal. She didn't just survive the narcissist's love, she transcended it. This was her becoming. If her story felt familiar, maybe it's because you're still living yours. Maybe you've questioned your reality, second-guessed your worth, or made yourself smaller just to keep the peace. But let this be your sign. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not the problem. You are waking up. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It happens in whispers. In moments where you choose yourself over the illusion. So take a breath. You made it here for a reason. If you're ready to rebuild piece by sacred piece, I invite you to subscribe. This space was created for you, for your heart, for your freedom. Together we'll untangle the lies, rewrite the narrative, and walk hand in hand toward healing. You are not alone, not anymore. This is Love Unfiltered, where the truth sets us free.